Another 2 weeks has passed and we're back again with another chat about aviation, a bit of space. Martin, we have a new email address.
Yes, we do. For those of you that like to comment or send anything in, the email address is airside.media@gmail.com.
We might as well start interfacing with our growing audience. And people will notice that if you're watching on YouTube, we've got some video playing right now. We're going to maybe start the program every now and then with a bit of video.
Clips out of your library, your massive library.
And what do you think of that one?
That's pretty cool.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah. Bit of history there, the old 737-200 swinging in over the bay. Very nice shot, Paul.
From the tail.
Yes. How'd you do that?
Well, we're going back to 1994 here. National Panasonic brought out a camera with a wide-angle lens on it for, sort of like, not a spy camera, but, something you could put in a stump in the cricket match or something like that, that sort of design. One single CCD. Anyway, I had this nutty idea to do a shot from the tail of the 737. I talked to this camera guy, a guy called Mike Rathbones, well known in the industry. He says, I've heard of this camera, let's have a look. Turned out it had a 10-metre cable that could come with it, which turned out was enough to roll it down the tail through the rear pressure bulkhead, through the wiring bung that already existed, and into a tape machine.
And how did you house it up on the tail?
The composite guys at Christchurch Hangar, and these guys are great. Once they realised, we can do this, they were really into it. And every resource was put into it, and they fashioned this fairing. There's a fairing that joins the top of the tail, which is an aerial, with the leading edge of the tail, and it's a composite fairing. Well, they moulded that, and then they made a new version, modified it with a little housing and a place where they could put a clear bit of plastic, and made an actual sort of lens cover, and we mounted the camera in behind that.
That's a great shot. I mean, you've got the whole approach all the way up to the landing. It's very nice.
Right over downtown Wellington, round in its back. Anyway, so maybe from now on we'll bring out some video clips and play them at the front of our podcast. An added bonus for those watching YouTube. Huh?
Yeah, all right.
Oh, well, there's a bit of a challenge. We'll go through the film library and see what comes up.
And not only are we available on YouTube, you can also find us on iTunes. Just search for Airside Radio and you can subscribe.
It's getting out there.
It slowly is.
It's expanding. Tentacles everywhere.
Yeah.
Multimedia.
Yeah.
Airside.media@gmail.com if you want to contact us.
Yep.
All right, boy, big announcement this week.
Yes, that is big.
Yeah.
Air New Zealand.
Did we see... Sorry, we're not experts. We're armchair idiot types. But did we see that coming? We sort of did. We knew something was boiling away.
I think we thought it would be more to do with Etihad, though.
Yeah.
But it looks
but the story's not over, I don't think. But,
no.
Anyway.
No, but obviously, Air New Zealand, Singapore Airlines and Etihad now own this big chunk of Virgin. So I guess something was on the cards.
Luxon on the board.
Luxon is now on the board.
That was just news from, I think, late yesterday.
So I guess it kind of figures that there'll be closer cooperation between those four airlines, and I think it's great news for Air New Zealand.
So what happened here, because Qantas and Emirates did a deal, Qantas shifted their Kangaroo route stop-off to Dubai from Singapore. That would have taken quite a few hundred out of the through traffic to Singapore. They would have noticed that. Yeah. So Singapore Inc., not just the airline, but Inc. says, well, we've got to reclaim those customers. Let's talk to someone who can feed them in. Air New Zealand, new service, boom, in.
Yeah.
Put an A380 on, there's another 150.
Yes, well,
we're already back to the numbers that Qantas has lost.
So the big changes is, at the moment, Singapore Airlines run a 777-300 to Auckland every day. In the relatively near future, it looks like they're going to swap that out for an A380, which will increase capacity already by a fair chunk.
There you go.
And then Air New Zealand's going to be putting on a 777-200 daily to Singapore. And the interesting thing is that the cooperation is going to be so close that if you want to get to Frankfurt or Paris or Amsterdam, any of these places that Singapore flies to in Europe, you can basically book it through the Air New Zealand site. So it's given Air New Zealand almost direct flights to all these European capitals. And I must admit, for me, someone who goes to Europe not often, but once or twice a year, that makes my choice a whole lot simpler how I'm going to get to Europe, because it's going to be Air New Zealand, Singapore all the way.
Well, the other thing is Emirates has some competition now. They've got A380 one-for-one competition, haven't they? I mean, not to the scale, because they've got 3 a day, but now there's a choice if that's a premium product. Now, see, they were just coming into land at Wellington here, by the way, on the video clip. For those who are watching on YouTube, that's new too.
Yes, it's quite a shrewd move, I think, by both airlines. Yeah, good luck to them. I think it's very good. I was very disappointed when Air New Zealand cancelled their Singapore service, because I don't really like flying via anywhere else to Europe.
Here's one thing that fascinates me about this, and I may be wrong, but you might have an idea on this, is that if Singapore Airlines wasn't an instrument of Singapore Inc., this probably wouldn't have happened. Because it's a greater need than just getting bums on seats on planes, isn't it? They need people going through that airport.
Yeah, that's why.
And they lost that Qantas business. Boom.
Yes, and this probably doesn't replace the Qantas business, but I reckon it goes
it'd be
a
pretty
fair
close,
way.
wouldn't it?
I reckon it does go a fair way. Yeah.
So also Silk Air. That's all over the place.
Yes.
In that part of the world. And that's then feeder traffic to New Zealand tourism,
Yes.
isn't it?
So Kiwis who want to get to the subcontinent or want to get to Indonesia, places like this, it's fantastic. Easy.
Seamless. And also back the other way.
And back the other way, indeed. I think it's a bit of a goer, actually.
So then what happens? Etihad still hovers around here. What's going on there?
Well, I'm sure...
when are they going to plug in?
Well, I'm sure it'll evolve to the point that whereas if somebody from New Zealand wants to go to the Middle East or any of the places where Etihad is strong, same thing. You'll go to Singapore and pick up an Etihad flight.
Does Singapore Airlines try and buy Air New Zealand over time? Because all those shares are up for grabs.
Well, what we still don't know is from that share float, we don't really know who bought the large chunks.
Or who's going to end up with them.
Yeah.
Because you could easily, couldn't you?
Proxies.
Yeah, right.
But that's a bit of
Well,
bit of conspiracy.
But why are they there?
But you don't. Yeah, we don't know. Maybe we should get onto that.
Well, I mean, it's legitimate to think that because the Middle Eastern airlines are aggressive. They're aggressive.
Yeah.
They do things. They don't sit around.
And this Singapore Airlines Air New Zealand move, it is a bit of an aggressive move. I think it's pretty good. It's Singapore taking the fight, to Qantas and Emirates and all that, and winning back market. And it happened very quickly.
Okay. And they've scrapped the discount Night Rider flights. Why did they do that? They're losing too much money, huh?
Yeah, I guess it wasn't making them any dough.
Weren't they just monetizing repositioning flights? I thought that.
Well, that's what I thought they were doing, but obviously it doesn't pay, so they stopped it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The 787 saga continues for
really?
Norwegian Airlines. They've had a particularly long run of bad luck with getting them into service.
Never get on the wrong side of the Norwegians.
No, they get quite grumpy. Well, and they have every right to be. Perhaps the reason is they are trying to use them for quite long legs.
Yeah, but that's how they've been promoted.
That's exactly how they've been promoted, and they're trying to get very high utilization hours out of them, and they've had nothing but problems.
That's the problem.
I think it is. The latest problem they've had is that the fuel dump valve in the wing malfunctioned, and there's a video of it taxiing out in Miami, just fuel pouring out of the wing.
Oh, so malfunctioned to open.
Yes, malfunctioned to open. That's one of the theories.
Like it didn't have it in the air.
Another theory is one of the transfer pumps malfunctioned and was transferring vast quantities of fuel from the center fuel tank into the outer fuel tank, and that caused it to overflow, and it just started dumping fuel.
Right.
And that plane had already been delayed 19 hours for other reasons.
Oh, man, that must have driven them nuts.
And then, of course, we had JAL back on the tarmac earlier in the week with white smoke issuing from the battery containment box.
But the containment worked.
Yes. Still caught fire.
So that solves it.
Yeah, it's all good.
They'd be feeling a bit dishonoured by now, wouldn't they?
Well, they'd be feeling a bit guilty because they built most of the plane.
Oh, right. Oh, well, that's good. That's good for Boeing. They can project the guilt onto them.
I think 52% of the plane by weight is made in Japan, and they built the batteries.
So it reflects quite badly.
So it's their fault.
Yeah. Blame them. Okay, especially the batteries, though, isn't it?
Yuasa.
They used to make motorcycle. I remember having one on my motorcycle.
Yeah, I had a 50cc motorcycle back home, and it had a Yuasa battery.
Never melted down.
Not that I noticed.
Yeah, though probably quite good containment, even though we didn't realise it at the time. So they're stroppy, aren't they? They seem, apart from Air India, they seem to complain the most, the Norwegians, about.
Well, the Norwegians are
and the Polish. They had their hand out for money, didn't they?
Yeah, but the Norwegians have the highest utilization rates, or they're trying to get the highest utilization rates. The Japanese would probably have a lot more problems if they flew them more than once a day.
Yeah.
Because they're taking it really easy, the entry into service.
I mean, that must be costing a bomb. Is the government paying? Well, there must be some sort of offset, because you'd be taking a huge hit, wouldn't you?
Well, if you're not state-owned, but your state-supported enterprises are building 52% of the world's latest and greatest plane by weight, you'd obviously be trying to give Boeing a bit of a break.
Right. That's why I wonder who's compensating, because the company can't be hemorrhaging money. JAL management wouldn't like that.
Yeah.
Prime Minister Abe, we want some money.
No, Boeing will be paying somehow, but I'm sure it won't be cash. It'll be, extra spares kits or more engineers positioned in the country, or a bigger slice of the next plane to build.
Yeah.
It'll be soft compensation.
Yeah, and what did Bush say? If you're not with us, you're
against us.
You're against us. Yeah. You'd sort of project that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Scare them.
Yeah.
Get them running scared.
Perhaps that would
That's
be
the way to work it.
On the other hand, the A350 test program seems to be going quite well.
Right.
They recently flew it to Bolivia.
La Paz.
La Paz.
Yeah.
And then on the way back, it flew back home via Martinique and stopped there for a...
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's off to Canada very shortly for some cold weather testing.
Oh, yes. I like watching videos of that. It's like minus 30 or 40 or something.
Yeah.
Icicles hanging off the thing.
Yeah, so the A350 seems to be going quite well, and they've just confirmed that entry into service with Qatar will be towards the end of this year.
Okay.
And the fourth test aircraft is just about to come online.
What about the versions?
Ah, yes, that's getting a bit complicated. So the A350-800, which is the shorter one, which is roughly comparable in size to a 777-200, that's hasn't made many orders. In fact, it's and a lot of airlines have been upgrading. So it appears what Airbus are thinking of doing is stretching the plane slightly.
Right.
Either internally by rearranging the way the plane's laid out internally, or adding 1 or 2 frames.
Right.
Because they haven't actually done all the engineering for it yet.
Oh, okay.
Adding another 15 to 20 seats, which will place it squarely in 787-900 territory.
Right. Direct competitor.
The A350-900 will then be competing with the current 777-300, which will allow the A350-1000 perhaps to get a little bigger to compete with the 787.
So they're matching toe for toe.
Basically, they're going to go
line.
head to head with Boeing. Yeah,
It's sort of like a showdown.
it is. It's quite interesting and very useful for Airbus because they're on the market now.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. They'll be ahead, right?
They'll be ahead of the 777s. So the more of them they can get, and of course, JAL's taken A350. ANA are the next ones. This slight upsizing might be to keep ANA interested and to convince them that it is a 777 replacement.
Wow.
Available almost now.
A few programs ago, we were talking about the C Series. I remember you saying that they'd abruptly stopped the test flying. There were a couple of flights, and then they sort of abruptly stopped, as if there was maybe quite a major showstopper problem.
Certainly something that slowed down the program.
But there's more on that now.
Well, it looks like it's going to be delayed 12 to 18 months.
That's a long time.
That is a long time. And if you read all the reports that are coming out, it seems that it might have been a software issue.
Right.
Because it's fly-by-wire. But they're trying to be very upbeat about it. Of course, it might be that the Pratt & Whitney geared turbofans are late.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
That's the flagship
or
new technology on the plane.
Something's come up with them, a problem.
Yeah.
Of course, C Series is a regional jet. We're talking, about 60 right up to about 150?
Well, they've upsized it. And in their latest press release, they're talking of upsizing it again to take it slap bang into A319, A320 territory or 737, 7 or 8, or not quite 8. So they are realizing that they probably started a little small.
Right.
And that they probably need to make it a little bit bigger. Still looks like a fine plane. The trouble is they are getting perilously close to the first flight of the Embraer version 2s.
And they're already ahead.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. Bombardier, Canada.
It's recently done some long flights. It's flown down to Wichita.
What's kind of way?
Which they do their integration.
Yeah.
In the States.
Yeah, maybe it's just in some regimes, the fly-by-wires.
Yeah, the test flying's picked up a little bit recently, but it's only flown like 8 times.
Yeah, it's not many.
No. Considering the A350's been flying basically every day since its first flight.
I see, that must be up hundreds of hours now.
Oh, yeah, it's halfway through the test program.
Yeah, there you go.
On 2.5 planes.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's really the latest regional jet version.
Yeah.
But they've been around for ages, regional jets, haven't they? We were just thinking about that before. Where did it all start? It was sort of like the 70s, mid-70s?
I think it was before then. I think it was the Poms. The back 111 was a short range.
Yeah, the first version.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 100.
We didn't have many people. What was that? That was a 70-seater?
80, 85, I think.
So that was basically a regional jet. And they tried...
Freddie Laker flew that first, British United.
Well, they tried to sell it big to America. I mean, United flew them, didn't they?
Allegheny.
Yeah,
they flew them.
Yeah.
And they went to US Air after that.
Okay.
Didn't American Airlines have...
Kenny
Rogers had one.
Yeah?
His personal jet was a BAC
tubby little things, weren't they?
Yeah, bloody noisy too.
They flew them a lot in West Africa as well.
Aussie Air Force had one, and they used to come out here sometimes.
So regional jets have been around for a long time.
The 111 still, to me, is more of an airliner than a regional jet.
Yeah.
Because they ended up quite big, actually.
Well, they ended up stretching them, and that seems to be what happens. They bring out a small plane and make it longer and longer and longer.
It's like you're saying the DC-9 was a regional jet. Really, it was slightly bigger than that. Even the first one was real short, stubby.
It was a proper plane, though.
Yeah, well, like BAC 111.
Yeah.
I reckon the first one that I would really call a regional jet is that European one, the Fokker.
Oh, yes.
Remember the VWF?
Yes.
The one that had the engine sticking up the other way.
They'd obviously closely looked at that to design it as a regional jet because they put the engines on top of the wings to make it a lot quieter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, on approach and everything.
Yeah.
Because it shielded all the noise.
But it's the right length, it's the right size. What was it, about a 40-seater? 1970, the production was approved. 71 it first flew.
I think it was I think you're right. I think it was about a 40-seater.
Yeah.
Had Lycoming engines, I believe.
Only 10 were ordered.
They've only just recently retired the German Air Force one. German Air Force had 2 for test aircraft.
Oh, really?
They've only stopped flying very recently.
Your Rolls-Royce Snegma M45H turbofan was the engine, according to this.
It was meant to be Lycoming.
It was meant to be Lycoming original. Originally proposed in 61, though. That's a long way back.
It was a funky-looking little plane.
Yeah.
Sat very low to the ground.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have to put the engines up there.
So it actually flew in service. 3 airlines.
Denmark, Simba,
Yeah.
and 2 in France.
And for the Luftwaffe as well.
Yeah.
They're fine-looking planes. Very futuristic.
But you can imagine back in the 60s and 70s when they were trying to sell these things, that was a bit of a leap given what regional airlines were flying around at the time.
Well, they would have been Convairs.
Yeah,
And
prop liners.
Friendships and...
Yeah, and they would have been very
748s.
expensive to operate and very expensive to purchase probably.
Yeah. Especially with limited production run.
Yeah.
Maximum speed, 437 miles per hour, 380 knots. Quite a straight wing on it.
Yes. Well, regional aircraft.
Yeah.
Short range.
25,000 foot ceiling.
Yep.
So, yeah, it goes back a long way. 61.
61.
So what's that? It's over 50 years ago they first
Specially
flew.
designed regional jet.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s and 90s, the American airlines all went crazy for these Canadair regional jets. That they were 35, 40-seaters.
Yeah.
And they didn't last long, eh?
No, there's heaps of them in the desert.
Just
But
lines of them.
the 50 plus are still in service, aren't they?
Anything above sort of 55 managed to hang on.
Yeah.
But even then, the big Dash 8s started pushing into their territory.
Yeah.
So now the most successful regional jets are all sort of 90, 95 people.
And I see that the Kuwait Air Force are getting a C-17. You see
Yeah,
that
that's a
picture
nice picture, yeah.
there? Yeah, Long Beach, California.
Yeah.
I've been there, actually.
That'll be
where
the
where they
last of the McDonnell Douglas planes, eh?
I've seen them making the C-17 there.
I worked with a guy who was an engineer on the undercarriage
Yeah.
at Long Beach.
The whole McDonnell Douglas production line that used to make DC-8s does the C-17.
Yeah, and these are the last ones. The
Okay.
line's going to be closed soon.
Really? So
apparently.
they've managed to sell one, because Qatar flies one, don't they?
Yeah, Qatar,
Qatar.
I think they bought a couple, actually. I think
Yeah.
they've got 3.
Yeah.
And the Indians have bought a whole bunch.
Okay.
The Poms run, I think, 12 now. The,
Yeah.
the Aussies have got
Aussies.
10.
Oh, okay.
The Yanks have got, I think, 300.
Canada too, I
300.
think.
Yes, I think Canada's got a couple.
So they must have made, what, 200 or 300 of them?
Oh, yeah, they made a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a good plane.
It's the go-to lifter.
I mean, I was up at the Ohakia Air Show year before last,
Mm-hmm.
and we got to walk around inside one, the Aussie one. It's big.
Yeah.
It's
It is big. Yeah.
it is huge inside.
Yeah.
The width is what strikes you. It is really, really wide.
And it's well finished inside.
nice, yeah.
They've done a nice job. And then you climb up that ladder onto another deck, and then
Yeah.
in front of that it's a flight deck.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
upstairs.
Yes, no, it was very impressive.
They do that amazing approach, the combat
The
approach.
combat approach, yeah.
It's like aircraft carrier. I've seen that at an air show.
Actually stops in its own length, doesn't it?
And then they reverse up.
Yeah.
Like they literally back it up like a car.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then there's the combat departure,
yeah.
which is this extreme rotation at full power. Why don't we have one?
Here
We
we
should
go.
be getting some.
Yeah. Well, you'd think, if there was ever such a thing as the Anzac Alliance, New Zealand could say, listen, we'll do
Or
transport
4.
planes
We'll-
or something.
We'll do 4 or 6 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You lease them. Well,
Yeah.
that's what the British have done. The British have leased theirs.
Just lease them. And for the sake of diplomacy and, our Prime Minister playing golf with the US President, we could do a deal here.
Well, for
Probably
something-
wouldn't cost us anything.
Something like that. You got a plane sitting up in Auckland. There's a cyclone in Tonga. You could take enough food for 3 months on one of those.
Exactly. And what's more, as you go back, get some more
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
And how much more really would it be to operate? It wouldn't be that much more than the Hercs. Hey,
Yeah,
really.
well, the
it's
Hercs-
just fuel, that's all.
Hercs would need 4 times as many trips.
Yeah, there you go.
Double the time.
I want one.
It ain't going to happen.
I'm only going to vote for a party that has that policy.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm going to say, what is your C-17 policy?
I'm sure Kim.com was like, oh, we will buy 10.
Yeah. Viva logos them all up. With
Internet.
mega
lifter.
Yeah, mega lifter. Been a couple of incidents of aircraft sliding off runways in the US with that polar vortex that came through, Martin.
And Southwest Airlines has been in the news a bit lately. First of all, they landed at the wrong airport.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, on a clear, calm day.
Yeah. Oh, evening, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Visual
it was
approach.
night, yeah.
What's 7 miles after you've gone 1,000?
Yeah, there you go. And then, of course, there's that Las Vegas tail strike on landing.
Yeah, I read about that. That was the 800, which is a longer one than they normally operate, isn't it? So it was a calm, clear day, apparently. Got to watch those calm, clear days and get you into trouble.
But those 737-700s that they usually fly, how much shorter are they than an 800?
I think they're quite a bit shorter.
And you were saying something about the landing speed on those 737-800s.
Yeah, I was reading that the 900s, the real long ones, at max landing weight, I think landing speed's at 163 knots.
Wow, that's
pretty
landing
quick, isn't
speed.
it?
And that's to avoid tail strikers so they can come in flat.
So I've been reading.
Yeah. The 900 has a tail, like a stop, doesn't it? It has a...
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so it's obviously a real danger.
One of those oak planks.
Block.
I was thinking, when I read that, remember that Lion Air crash at Bali?
Yes.
You know, if that was heavily loaded,
yes,
and it could have been if it was doing island hops,
yeah,
you might not have to get too slow before you're in trouble.
163 knots is fast, because it always amazes me.
That's max landing weight.
Max landing weight. When you go to an international airport and you watch an A380 coming in, and of course it's not at max landing weight. No. It's just flown 10,000 kilometres or whatever. But it is incredible how slowly they drift in, isn't it?
135, 40 knots.
That's the same speed as an A320.
Yeah, that's right. More on that crash in Russia?
Ah, well, yes, this is a bit of a scandal. The Russian authorities have found out that there have been several fly-by-night flying schools that have been issuing fake pilots' licenses and fake certification to Russian pilots, some of whom were flying for the Russian government flying wing.
Incredible.
Yes, and they've even...
Gosh, that's loose as a goose.
Apparently there's even evidence of cabin crew who have got certification to fly.
So corruption's rife.
Without the proper training.
Is that what you're telling me?
And they think that had something to do with that Tatarstan crash with that 737.
Didn't know what they were doing.
Probably didn't know what they were doing. Or at least one person on the deck didn't know what they were doing.
Crazy.
Yes. On the other hand, it does show you how not easy these things are to fly, but with the minimum of training, some people do seem to hack it.
Should we go to Russia? I remember Martin talking to an Ansett 727 pilot. Anyway, I was chatting to him, and we did a bit of filming out there in Melbourne, and I thought, I'll ask this question. I said, have you ever seen a UFO? Thinking that it was slightly nutty. He said, well, actually, yes, I have.
Oh, yeah?
I said, oh, yeah? What was that? He said, flying between Sydney and Brisbane, late afternoon, early evening, but it was still sort of light.
Light, yeah.
He said they were flying along, and something went from west to east in front of them, he thought a couple of miles, really fast, to the point where it gave them a bit of a fright, him and the co-pilot, because they're looking out. You know, one looked at the other and said, you know, did you see that? He said, I think I saw that, yeah. Called up the ATC, asked them if there was any unidentified traffic in the area. The ATC got back to him and said, well, stand by. Anyway, then a minute or so later, the guy comes back and says, yeah, we got a target that's, I think it was 80 miles to the east of them, stationary over the Tasman Sea.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, all right. And then the guy radioed back a couple of minutes later and said, it's north of you now by something like 300 nautical miles, and it had only been like 2 minutes. And they couldn't identify it, and then it disappeared. And that was it.
Went back to its comet.
He's a credible guy.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Of course, there was an incident here in New Zealand. I interviewed the guy who was at ATC about the sighting over Kaikoura from the Argosy.
Yeah.
A real conservative 50s trained ATC guy, very serious about the job, retired, but very serious, would never embellish anything, but would tell you exactly what he saw.
Yeah.
And, you know, same thing, they were on the scope. There was something on the scope. He was watching it.
No idea what it was.
No idea. But, you know, there were guys in a plane also visually looking at it in the right direction where he's seeing it on the scope.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what are we leading up to? Well, there's a recent story of a UFO sighting over London.
Yeah.
Downtown London. It was a BA A320, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And the pilot said they ducked. They thought they were going to hit it.
Wow.
But he couldn't tell how big it was. So it's sort of weird.
It is.
There's that classic bit of footage of that funny thing flying around the Concorde. Have you seen that?
No.
Oh, okay. I suggest people do a search. It looks like it's the size of a big rugby ball.
Yeah.
And they were doing an air-to-air film shoot for promotional purposes. I think it's in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
And there's this sort of black disc flying around it.
Wow.
Now, some people say it's a
artifact of the film.
thing on the film.
Yeah.
But it has such an organic presence in the movie that it's pretty hard to say it's a dot.
Yeah.
You know, like a bit of dirt.
Yeah.
Actually moving frame by frame properly, you know.
I haven't seen it. I'll go and look for it.
Yeah, so...
Concorde UFO.
Yeah, anyway, yeah.
Wow.
Got to say, I've never seen a UFO.
No.
Ever.
No.
So, you know, until I have seen one
Yes.
or experienced it. I just don't know.
But there are so many reports by otherwise apparently plausible people. You know, you do get the feeling that they obviously saw something.
UFO just means unidentified
Yes,
flying
yes,
object. Doesn't mean it's not man-made or...
No, quite.
You know. And we haven't talked space for a while. Big story, you've got to acknowledge it this week. Fantastic achievement to wake this space probe up that's going to go and land on the comet.
The comet lander.
Yeah.
Rosetta.
I'm so impressed by that sort of stuff, you know?
Yeah, it's pretty
And
clever.
they've used the slingshot effect to get it up to the speed of the comet.
It's...
26,000 miles an hour the comet's going.
I wonder what they'll find.
Well, it'll just be a hunk of ice, won't it?
Yeah, I wonder what's in it, though.
Well, they'll be looking for those amino acids.
Yeah. That is interesting. Yeah. Pure science still being done. Pure space
And
science.
it's Europeans this time.
Yeah. And they managed to wake it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. You hope they don't do that Mars lander thing where the one team was using metric and the other team was using
the
imperial.
Poms, when the Poms
Lost
it on landing.
Yeah, because it was trying to land 500 feet deeper than the ground was or something.
Isn't that just... Is that right? That's amazing.
The two teams are using
That's a
different measurements.
classic, isn't it? That's a clanger of the space program, of space history, that one. But this thing's going to look for those amino acids, and if it finds them, it means that, well, it's a pretty safe bet that the stuff's everywhere. It's just everywhere.
Yeah.
Why would it just be here? You got comets everywhere with this stuff on board.
Splashing down, bringing water and amino acids.
And making life.
Making life.
And ending up with aviation podcasts.
Yeah, well, that's the...
Billions of years later.
Isn't that the reason behind it all?
So, airside.media@gmail.com if you want to contact us.
Yep.
Paul Brennan in Wellington.
Martin Noakes in Wellington as well.
See you later.
Cheers.